What's up? It's me, Joey, and I am here to do, sorry, I'm moving some stuff because it's like all crooked. I'm here to do today's Gregway. We have a lot of updates in the world of Taylor Swift this week. So we're starting at the beginning, which guys, this is how much I really like you, is that I wrote a whole outline of things and questions and all that stuff. So buckle in, because this is going to be a long one. Taylor, as most of you know, or maybe you don't know, finished the Eras tour. She launched the Tortured Poets Department. She's been real quiet in the off season. Granted, she did 150 shows over 2 years. Like, homegirl deserves some rest and relaxation. But 2 weeks ago, we got a post from one Killa Trav on Instagram, said, had some adventures this off season, kept it 100. Opens it with a picture of Taylor and Travis with these hats that have captain or ship puns or something on them. Of course, post a carousel of 13 pictures, Taylor Swift's favorite number. But it's just it's from his Kelsey Bowl stuff, them at dinner, them on vacation with Erin Andrews, him and Jason and Austin Swift in some rural country place on vacation with Ross Travis and Ashley Avignon and Titan University and their parents and all sorts of stuff. And a lot of pictures, all of these pictures we virtually have never seen. The other thing we have to talk about is that a lot of these pictures have what we lovingly refer to as the fuck ass filter on them, which is a very particular sepia toned filter that Taylor has on pretty much all of her pictures that she takes herself or she edits or whatever. And it's just this is how you know this comes from the private Taylor collection. So it's just so fun to see that kind of hash out. So this was the beginning of the ooh, we're getting pictures on the grid. This is exciting because she's been it's Travis, but she's been so low key for so long that it was ooh, this is fun and exciting. And then it was 6 a.m. on August 11th, that was Monday. I was what day is it? I have no idea. Time makes no sense. New Heights, which is Travis and Jason's podcast, posted 92 percenters, which is what they call their community of audience listeners and stuff. We're coming back early for a special episode with a very special guest. New episode Wednesday at 7 p.m. This picture is kind of it's not a total departure from their normal thumbnails, but this one has a sparkly orange background. And then it has a cutout in the middle where the guest would be. And it looks, I would assume it's a female form or shape, mostly because of the long hair and stuff like that. I can show it to you. It's right there. Sorry, there's a lot of other things on there. Some things to note. The orange background. That is not a New Heights color. That's not what they do. It is, however, been a recurring theme of Taylor Swift, costumes and stuff like that. Just interesting. And then the other thing in the thumbnail of Jason and Travis almost always record it virtually together. And so a lot of the shots from the podcast are them facing directly into the camera. Travis in this one is looking to the side, he's sitting next to someone. And we're this is interesting. New Heights has also baited teases before because they know that there's a Swiftie fandom obviously that watches because they're invested in Travis and Taylor. So not an unusual post from them. Posted at 6 a.m. August 11th. Then Taylor Nation, which is her social media, kind of community brand. It's kind of her, it's an official spokes account for her. Posted at 6:12 a.m. and says, thinking about when she said, see you next era. And it has all pictures of Taylor in her orange outfits from the Eras tour. 12 pictures because this would be Taylor's 12th album. And 12 pictures of her. The last one, her with Sabrina Carpenter. And this is when the Swiftie radar starts going up. What the fuck is happening? Too many 12s. We know that TS12 is being worked on, etc. Why is Sabrina on there? All of these things. Everyone freaking out, the theories, all of this stuff. It was a very exciting Monday as we kind of debunk as we kind of like process through all of it. If the post had happened in the opposite order, I think that people would have thought that maybe like New Heights was jumping on the trend, like you saw probably a lot of brands do, of like, oh, we want to take advantage of this engagement and like we'll post with these colors and stuff like that to get in the conversation. The fact that they posted first and kind of set the tone, it was like, ooh, this might actually have some legs to it. Tim at one point that day had asked me like, what the fuck is up with Taylor Swift today? And I like launched into like all of my thoughts at that point, and I could hear myself saying stuff. I was like, I know that this sounds crazy. Like, I am aware that, like, yeah, we think that Taylor Swift might be going on her boyfriend's football podcast to, like, talk about something. It's just like, that sounds crazy. It's, like, absolutely insane. And I could, but, you know, there were the threads and all that stuff. So I was giving Tim the rundown. Then, later that evening, I was, like, literally pulling into my driveway on the phone with my mom, pulled up Instagram at 7 o'clock that night, and said, Taylor's about to do a fucking podcast. A new episode went. Oh, that was the other thing. They announced that the podcast was going to drop at 7 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday. And like New Heights always drops at 6 a.m. our time, so 9 a.m. Eastern. When I wake up and I like pull up YouTube and stuff like that, it's always already live. So like the time is different. And that's when I got like kind of theoretical and I was like, well, the date is 8/13, Taylor Swift's number 13 always has been very well documented. And then 8/13 at 7 p.m. And I'm looking at those numbers and we're like, Travis's number is 87. So the 8th month at 7 p.m. on the 13th day. And like the 100 emote, keeping it 100 is like seemingly kind of a them thing. And so that was like another hint. So yeah, so then they drop a teaser video on socials, talk that it's just Travis and Taylor, and the entire world melts down. Taylor like doesn't, the last couple albums she's announced have either been in interviews on like morning shows. I think that's what Midnight's was at the Grammys. I think Tortured Poets was like the American Music Awards. Like it's always like a morning show or an award show. She had something on Good Morning America. I don't remember what it was. And then a lot of her re-records and stuff like that have been like at concerts or following a similar thing. So this is like very out of sorts for her. And they're talking about the color or they're talking about the colors and stuff like that. And I don't know, everyone like freaked out. Like this is just crazy. She's about to do a podcast. She never does podcasts. Like she barely really does interviews and stuff like that. Like this is definitely the most amount of Taylor we've gotten at like in a more approachable setting. So anyways, we're just waiting this whole time. The episode drops yesterday. I'm listening to it at my desk. The boys are all like, you should put it on the TV. You should put it on the TV. What I didn't tell them was that like, no, I need to like be locked in for this. Like I am invested, but they all wanted to put it on the TV, which meant that like I had to rewatch it last night because everybody had questions, which I'm happy to answer. And I'm excited that other people are interested in Taylor because like slowly it like started dragging people in and they were like, Nick was asking me questions and Roger was saying stuff and Tim was saying stuff and Mike was saying stuff. I was like, oh, this is very exciting. Because of course, Greg Miller on vacation this week. Who am I supposed to kiki with this about? No one, mostly Tim, but my main man gone. My main Taylor man gone. So yeah, the podcast was like 2 full hours, which is crazy. And like, they did a really good job of like, clearly it's like edited and like, I'm sure that was like a huge draw as to why Taylor did it, of like, obviously like the tying of their brands together and wanting to like boost and elevate each other is like so evident in the podcast and obviously by the choice. But also like, I'm sure she had complete creative control and editing control of like making sure that everything kind of was like presented in the way that she wanted it to be. Not necessarily in like a manipulative way or whatever, but just in like, she cares so much about herself and her creative process and her fans and like the way that things are presented, that like obviously she would want that and obviously they would give that to her. I think that a couple things were interesting. Her talking about like the way that their careers are parallel, of like she has rehearsal and he has practice, she has a show, he has a game, like all of those things I think were kind of clicked into place of like why I think they work so well together, of like you guys have a lot of just parallel things that make you understand what the other person is going through, even though it's like outside of your wheelhouse. Hearing her talking about like the music business stuff and like the rights and her masters and getting them back and like how all of that works was like so interesting, and like clearly she's so passionate about it, and like the way that that's affected the music industry is huge. So it's cool to get her to get to hear her talk about that outside of just like the letter that she wrote, and getting to hear about like the actual story of like how it went down and how it happened and how she found out and all that stuff. Like that was so cool. And like I love the fact that like her mom and her brother went, like they really keep it pretty close in the family. So we love that. It was just I was trying to think if we've ever seen her and like a significant other like have a conversation together, and I like don't really think that we have. Like it's usually like paparazzi pictures and stuff like that, but like this is the most interaction I think we've seen for sure, or have with another person on camera. And I just like loved it. It was really fun to go back and rewatch it because you pick up on things that you don't see the first time. But like when she's talking about Travis being like a human exclamation point, and like the way he like dials up the color in her life, it was obviously all of that is like really incredible and amazing, and I'm so happy that she has that. But it was watching Jason hear her say those things where you could see like how much it meant to him that his brother found somebody that like gets him, and like it looked very much like he was like kind of choked up and like emotional about it. And I was like, oh, this is like, not that I ever didn't think it was a real thing, but it was just like, oh, this is like a thing. But I really liked that. I also loved just like their mutual adoration and hyping each other up, of like Taylor always downplays or was downplaying like she's not an athlete, that's not her thing. And Travis was like, no, like we've worked out together, we've been to the gym together, like to do what you have to do and like your recovery and all of that stuff, like you are an athlete, even though it's just manifests a little bit differently than it does for me. And then to see on like the flip side, he kind of just like downplays that he's like the dumb kind of himbo guy, but like she doesn't really let him get away with that. And she's very much like, no, like you know so many things now and you want to learn, and like maybe it's just that like you learn differently, and but he seems like very eager to like be taught things, very coachable, you know? And so that was also really great to see. Jason, I think, also did like a really great job of like asking a lot of questions we've been wanting to know and stuff like that. It wasn't like the depth that I would expect from someone like as a Swiftie, and like so much of what plays into that, I'm sure, is like what Taylor's team wanted and what she wanted in terms of what she wants to share and stuff like that. And not like the nitty gritty kind of questions, but maybe we'll get to that at some point. It's also like so clear that they spend so much time together, the way that both her and Travis, obviously, and then their families, the way that she was talking about, like she specializes in like baby blankets and like little kid purses, and it's just like, oh, this is clearly like kind of an inside joke between you guys. And like even when she was talking about baking and stuff like that, the way that she was talking about like, oh yeah, I'm trying to like figure out how to incorporate sprinkles because that's what the girls like. It's like, oh, you like are very intentional about building these relationships with Travis's nieces and stuff like that. And you, even from the pictures from Travis's carousel, the fact that the brothers, or Travis and Jason and Austin, all were like hanging out together multiple times and stuff like that. It's just like, oh, your lives are like very ingrained in a way that we haven't really seen from her before. And like hearing about this album and the creative process and writing this on tour, and going back and forth to Sweden during the summer to record and all that stuff, like her drive to create and stuff like that is so impressive. And it's just like, clearly it's like a piece of her that like really she can't turn off. And that's why I think it's so interesting looking at some of the Easter eggs and stuff like that. It's like very clear that like this was the next album that was supposed to happen. And then Tortured Poets was like something that she had like a visceral need that she had to get out that like wasn't part of the plan. In my opinion. So yeah, so that's like the basis of kind of what's happened. But I got some really good questions, some fun stuff that we can chat about on Instagram. We'll start there. Amin Asale says, what are your thoughts on the album cover? I personally don't love the album cover. I think that I think the back cover, the orange, like showgirl outfit and stuff like that, I think that is a very stunning picture that I think would have been a little bit more iconic. Personally, I really like some of the alt variant covers, one with her like all in the jewels and stuff like that is like the other one that I think is really, really good. But like, I did buy all of the CD variants because I wanted all the cute little bracelety keychain things and they were very fun. So like, I'll have all of them and I'm excited to see the rest of the photo shoot. She was saying on the podcast that this is the same photographer team that did her rep stuff, which is incredible. So I'm excited that she's going, there's a theme obviously with working with Max Martin again and Shellback and stuff, that she's going back to her like pop roots with it. So it's fun to see that happen on like different levels on the creative side. And then yeah, Zane McBoss says, do you like the cover art for it? I love the back. I think the back is like maybe one of the more like perfect images that she put out with this. Murphy J11 Martin Murphy says, how do you feel about the changes in producers? Excited, nervous? I'm excited. Max Martin and Shellback both worked with her on Red, 1989, and I think Reputation. I think those are the three. So like her like core kind of pop era. So it's really exciting to hear that they're back. I love Jack Antonoff. I love Aaron Dessner. It's a different vibe. I think it's fun that she's like not married to working with them and is kind of like up for changing it up and stuff like that. That's very exciting. I was talking with Tim this morning and we were both just like chatting about all of this stuff because Tim was also watching this when he went home and like was texting me throughout the night about the different kind of things. And like when they were talking about the album, he was like, I think I'm back. I'm excited because like he's a 1989 boy. And so we were talking about too like the cohesion of working with the same producing team for the entire album, I think is going to be really good. And also like Travis is also very much into that era of Taylor. And if he says they're all bangers, I know they're together and he has to be supportive, but like, I believe that they're all bangers. So that'll be really fun. Tic Zac Toe says, do you think this is her quote lost album? I'd rather hear from her now, honestly. For the lore, there is a lost album called Karma that has been referenced in music videos and Easter egged over the years. Essentially, it's like Karma was the album she was supposed to put out before all the Kanye stuff happened that led to Reputation. I think it's interesting. I saw somebody make a comment somewhere, I can't remember where, that like all of her like black and white-ish themed albums tonally seem like something that kind of caught her off guard that she needed to get out creatively. With Reputation with the Kanye stuff, Tortured Poets with like the Joe, Maddie, like whatever you want to call it, Travis, even all of that stuff. And then Folklore, Evermore. I always get them confused because they're not my favorite albums and I don't really, that was like an era I was not as into Taylor because it's like her folk stuff is like not my favorite. I think it's Evermore is the black and white one, being another pandemic album and the surprise drop, I think. The black and white albums just being like albums that like kind of weren't in her plan. I think it's just an interesting theme. I don't know if I buy into it at all the time. I don't think that this is Karma. From the interview last night and stuff, it's like very clear that this was brought on by the Eras tour and all of that stuff. I think maybe the Karma stuff is like why she's leaning into the like green and orange to kind of get away from that assumption, but I don't know. But yeah, I don't think that this is like Karma redone, but we'll never know. Or maybe we will later down the road. Austin Garnier says, do you think we'll ever get Folk Tea back? Those are my two favorite albums by her. I think that there's no way that we don't see that come up. And I think it'll be an evolution. I don't think it'll be exactly the same, but she clearly loves working with Aaron Dessner and Jack Antonoff so much that like, I don't think that that's the last time we'll see them work on something like that. Muggle Prince 1006 says, favorite era, mine's 1989. I love 1989. I feel like that is like clearly like her big come up. My favorite era will always be Red. I think Red is an incredible album. I think the Taylor's version and the vault tracks that she came out, The Very First Night and Message in a Bottle are two of my like, I think all-time favorite Taylor songs now. And Girl at Home, which is like one of the only songs she never played on tour as a surprise song, which is shocking. The Taylor's version for Girl at Home is so good, and it's like my all-time favorite Taylor song, which is like very unpopular. But I think it's so poppy and synthy, and like what she did with that to turn it from the original one to this one, I think is so good, and I love it. Mad Exposure, Madeline Stanley says, is track 5 gonna wreck us as much as we think it will? Eldest daughter, come on. It's implied that the lyrics will be like folklore, but music like Rep 1989. Is there a better combo? If you don't know, track 5s on Taylor's albums are always the most like gut-wrenchingly, like, I think where we see her the most raw lyrically, maybe musically too. And so the fact that the track 5 is named Eldest Daughter, I think is gonna be an emotional gut punch. So we'll see how that goes. Everyone is like emotionally preparing for sure. Batgirl 15 says your top 3 albums. On any given day, I think the order is going to change depending on my mood, but they're for sure Red, 1989, and Midnights. I will say that sometimes I think 1989 and Rep kind of get to be interchangeable a little bit for me, depending on my mood. So I think it's those. This is a stressful question. I hate having to answer it, even though my answers don't really vary that much from those 4. Happy Hour 1064 says, do you think it was Taylor's idea or Travis's idea to drop the news on the podcast? It's 100% Taylor's idea. They said, I think they talk about it on the thing where Travis is like, I was never going to ask, Jason was never going to ask. I think that you have to be like fully aware of like the Taylor Swift of it all, and like I can't imagine the amount of things that people ask her for, and like wanting to separate yourself from that and being like, I'm here for Taylor Swift the person, not Taylor Swift the pop star. And so I think that they never would have broached that subject with her and would have put that in her hands if she wanted to. I don't think they ever would have wanted to put her in that kind of a position. I have some more Blue Sky questions. Samson sent in a bunch of them, so we'll kind of go through those. Okay, now that I've seen the track list, which one do you think is about Travis? I think we got so many Travis-y things on Tortured Poets that I don't think this album is going to be like outwardly, or maybe I don't think it's going to be outwardly Travis. Let me look up the Life of a Showgirl track list. Let's scroll down because I have not committed this to memory quite yet. And probably I never will. I'm really bad at that. Actually, Romantic, I mean, obviously is like the easy choice for what we think will be the Travis one. Wish List is with the $sign, so I don't think it's that. Honey, maybe. Opalite, maybe could be about relationships. Elizabeth Taylor could also be about or is probably about relationships and might have some like Travis in it. Ruin the Friendship also kind of has those vibes, but they weren't really friends before, so I don't think that's really them. Maybe that's like another Maddie thing, or it could be just something totally else. Wood, also interesting. I have no idea. I don't know that he called her sweetheart a lot in the podcast, so I don't know that honey is like necessarily like a term for them, but I also don't know that they would put the term for them on this. I don't know. I go back and forth on how much she wants to be private and how much she wants to share. Let's see. Do we really think Taylor plans this far ahead, or is she just really lucky? What if she got to help plan the MCU in this way? I think it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. There's that like Tay Voodoo that comes out for sure. But she was like, has confirmed that she was hinting at stuff during the Eras tour. She confirmed that in the some Midnights music videos, there are hints to stuff for this. So that's why I think that Tortured Poets like really kind of came out of left field and like she had to get it out. And why it felt like kind of weird and rushed in a way that we weren't expecting her to put out something during the Eras tour. So, and it feels like a little bit, it's way messier and like on a personal level than like anything she's ever put out too, which is, and feels very raw, which is why I think it was not as planned as kind of some of the rest of them. Will we ever get mention of Maddie or the 1975 feature again, My White Whale? Absolutely not. I don't think that there's any shot, especially with the way his mom was talking on Watch What Happens Live or whatever show she went on the other day. I mean, like, maybe we'll get references to their, like, relationship threaded through some stuff, but, I mean, here's the other thing. Never say never. I never would have thought that, like, she would collab with Joe Jonas or, like, what's his name? Fucking Taylor Lautner. Like, not that those ended, I mean, Joe did, but, I don't think those betrayals, and because they're younger, like to a different degree than I think all of this stuff. So I don't think we really will, but I would say no. Second question, but just seem interesting that they're using New Heights to promote this, which is great promo, but intertwining their brands. Yeah, 100%. I was lucky enough to be the final stop for Eras tour. Do you think any tour she does in the future will top that insane concert run? Our city pretty much shut down for Taylor, maybe timing with the pandemic and Dream. I don't. That feels like a lightning in a bottle thing, but like I also think that any tour that Taylor does is kind of gonna, maybe not to that degree, but I think her tickets are always gonna be hard to find. So I think that the like economic ramifications and that kind of stuff is always gonna be a thing. Dream feature artist on the album, who I venture towards like some of the people that I know that she loves, of like her and Carole King, her and Stevie Nicks, like that kind of stuff, I think would be incredible. In terms of like, obviously her and Olivia Rodrigo would be cool, but like they have some like weird bad blood, so I don't know if that'll ever happen. I'm trying to think of like who else who have I been listening to lately, I guess is the other thing. Is there anybody that let me pull up my like what I've been listening to in 2025 playlist. Let's see. I don't really care about her and Harry Styles as much, so that's like not a huge one to me. If she did more, her and Joe, like Joe Curie Joe would be interesting. And then yeah, if she went back to like country-ish stuff, then her and like Shania Twain, I think I would like. Is there anybody else I'm like dying for? Oh, the real crazy thing that I think would be so wild and I don't think would ever happen, but I think could be really fun, is I want her and the Starting Line to do a song together. She referenced them in Black Dog from Tortured Poets Department, and I love the Starting Line, and they're putting out new music and they're touring right now, and that would be like there's like so many people that have said that like it's so easy to like pop punkify Taylor's music, and I think that that's totally true, and I think it'd be fun if she like leaned into that at some point and like committed to doing that. Like people always want like a rock album and stuff from her, so I would be into that. Farago Walk With Me says, what's her most underrated album and why is it Midnights? I love Midnights. I don't think it's her most underrated because I think for a lot of people like me that did not love, I mean, like, honestly, for me, I didn't love the opening single for Reputation, which was Look What You Made Me Do. It's like, oh, after 1989, this is like very different from Taylor. And on first listen of Reputation, I was like, oh, I don't think I like this. So like that kind of started my like de-escalation of Taylor, of like, I didn't really listen to a ton of Lover. I think I don't really like any of her opening like launch singles because I didn't like the Brendan Urie song. I still think is like maybe one of my least favorite songs she's ever done. And it was just like a different kind of vibe. And then I didn't really care about Folklore Evermore, which I've like really grown to love at this point. Like even during Eras Tour, like when we were plotting, like when are we taking breaks? Like what do we not want to miss? Like Folklore and Evermore segments were the ones that we had pegged for like bathroom, drinks or food, merch table, like all of the like stuff we wanted to do, we planned to do in those things. And like we were still so quick. I think I missed like a single song, maybe a song and a half doing all of that stuff. So I didn't really miss that much of them. And I really did grow to love of like Marjorie was like really incredible. So those have grown on me. But I think her most underrated album, I think, is Fearless. I think people kind of forget her early stuff, obviously, because it's so different and she's so baby in it. But I think we focus a lot more on Speak Now. And like, I have to like, Fearless album. Like, is this another one of the ones that like won album of the year? Probably. Let's look at this. Accolades. Yeah, album of the year for the Country Music Awards. And like it won the Grammy. So obviously not that underrated. But I think if you take that away, I think it's the one that kind of gets painted over a little bit now. Obviously Reputation has like grown to be so much more beloved than it was when it launched. But so like there is an argument for that too. But I think at the current state, I would say Fearless. Let's see. Shutterpaw says Folklore or Evermore. Okay, I'm gonna pull up like the actual albums because I didn't really listen to either of these and they're not like my favorite genre. I very often get these two, like I really don't have any good sense of like which is on what album. Cancel me, whatever. So let's look at this. Folklore has The One, which I love. Cardigan, Last Minute, My Tears Ricochet, which is incredible. Mirror Ball, I also love. This Is Me Trying, Invisible String, Betty, The Hoax, The Lakes. Okay, perfect. Folklore, let's look at Evermore. Dun, dun, dun. Willow, Champagne Problems, Gold Rush, 'Tis the Damn Season, Tolerated, Nobody, No Crime, Happiness, Dorothea, Ivory, Cowboy Like Me, Long Story Short, Marjorie, Closure, Evermore, Right Where You Left Me. Oh, this is so hard. I'm like pretty split on this. My gut says Folklore, but like, I'm looking. I think it is Folklore, if I'm like really being honest with myself. Right Where You Left Me though is like a top tier song for me for sure. And that kind of elevates a lot of it. I like a lot of these songs. I think I have higher highs on Folklore than I do on this one. Cowboy Like Me is a song that I feel like I should like, and it just doesn't really, I think it's fine, but it feels like one that I should like really like. Okay. Go back to the doc. Colt has a few. If you had 1 hour to try and convert T-Swift to a gamer, what game are you showing her? I mean, truly, coming off of the back of Gamescast today, it's Tiny Bookshop. Like, she is very heavy-handed with like a lot of her love of reading and literary references and stuff like that. So I think that getting to pick out books to recommend to people feels like something she'd be really into. Favorite surprise song / mashup of the Eras tour. There are so many that it's incredibly hard to remember like which ones I like melted for. Pretty much anything that had Death by a Thousand Cuts, and The Very First Night and Message in a Bottle are the ones that like I'm really jealous of. I loved the surprise songs that we got. We got All of the Boys You Loved Before and Stay, Stay, Stay. I was really happy to have a song from Red, even if it's one that I like, but it's not my favorite. But I think it's also very fun because Stay, Stay, Stay has a line about you came in wearing a football helmet and said, okay, let's talk, after they had a fight. And then All of the Girls You Loved Before. This was before we knew about her and Travis. And so it felt like this is a fun thing for me. And eventually you guys will connect and realize why I paired these songs together. And so I love that. That's like very fun for me. What are you doing down there? How deep are you into the theories and the lore of it all? Are you clowning on the regular? I am. I love that there are people that are smart enough to like make all of these connections because like I kind of go deep and then I come out, and I go deep and then I get out. Like I am an absorber of a lot of the theories, and like I go back and forth with like different people in my life when we're like, ooh, what about this, and da 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 da, that kind of stuff. But like I'm never all about it enough to like post about it publicly, like to be in it that hard. I like to do that in like my private circles of things. But like I'm on the Reddit. I am very much on like Swiftie Twitter still, even though I don't use Twitter. Like I get served a lot of that content. And I love it. But I'm not the one necessarily making a lot of the connections. There are certain things for sure that I'm like, ooh, this and this, but like I don't, as much as I love it, I have too many other things in my life that I also love that take up brain space for me to like really be like a hardcore Swiftie. To be like on that level of like, oh, this and this is the thing, and I just can't do it. I have to call it on that one. When Life of a Showgirl drops, will you do a track list ranking? Probably. I don't know. Sometimes I go back and forth of like, we have to rank so many things for work that like a lot of things that I do in my off time, I don't rank. Like even on my I guess my letterbox, I do rank because it's still like work adjacent, but like my Storygraph, like book stuff, like I just use for like stats and tracking. I don't really rank or rate like the books and stuff that I read. And I really only do it, do like game stuff for work. Like I would prefer not to do it. Sometimes it's nice, I think, because I have to do it so much for interview, and like my brain is kind of wired that way for interview, that like I like the other things not to do that. But I will probably maybe I'll do like a tier list, because sometimes it's like hard. There's like a website you can go to that is well, like the boys maybe have talked about it for game of the year, where it'll like put two games or two songs, two games, whatever, two things together, and you pick which one you like, and then you do that like they do so many different configurations, and at the end it spits out a list of like, based on how you ranked everything against each other, this is your actual ranking of everything, and it's super interesting. So I will probably do something like that. Okay, San Hanitizer has the last few questions. What was the song or the moment you knew you were fully in on Taylor? I have listened to Taylor since the beginning. Teardrops on My Guitar, Tim McGraw, like I was there for debut. Fearless, I listened to a lot. Speak Now, I listened to a lot. And obviously like those were some of her like early big pop radio hits and stuff like that. But it was the Red album for sure for me. Like the Red album came out, is it 2010? 2011? Red album. 2012. Okay, I'm off a little bit. 2012, which makes more sense because at that point in my life, I was out of college. I was always really mad because Taylor's like a 1989 baby and I'm 1988. So like 22 and stuff like that came out the year after I needed them. But Red, I remember having in my like car. I was like still very much like listening to a lot of country music, going line dancing. But like, I just remember that album clicked in a way that like, I had always been like kind of more of like I like an artist and I like particular songs. I don't really care about albums as a whole. And this was the one that changed it for me for sure. Like there's something about Red that's so nostalgic for me, thinking about like those first years of like being out of college and figuring out work and life, and people are moving back home from our college town, and like it felt like a very tumultuous time period, and there's something like very comforting about Red to me. Let's see what else. Also, for someone who doesn't listen to actively, what songs are an easy recommend? I like a lot of the early popular stuff and also Delicate, but not much else. Honestly, for me, Midnights is like such a return to like Taylor's roots, and why I think it was like such a good kicking off album for the Eras tour, because I think it really brought back in a lot of older fans that she had kind of lost along the way. Reputation and after that, with especially with Folklore and Evermore and stuff like that. And so I think that those are some of the best ones. If we're looking at, let me pull up my like Taylor Swift playlist. Which ones? I think that those for sure. honestly, you should go back and listen to some of the vault tracks. I think it's some of her like really most interesting work, especially on the level of like figuring out why those tracks got left off of albums and why other ones were included and stuff like that. Electric Touch, which is a vault track from Speak Now, I think is really good. I also really like Fall Out Boy, so that could be that. When Emma Falls in Love, which is in theory about Emma Stone, is another good one. Starlight is another one of my favorites. Not a vault track, but just in general. Girl at Home, Taylor's version. And then Message in a Bottle, The Very First Night. All Too Well 10-minute version is not really what you're asking for, but it is like a core experience that everybody should listen to. Babe is also very good vault tracks. And then the 1989 vault tracks are like really good. Now That We Don't Talk is like, I think my favorite. Say Don't Go, also really good. Is It Over Now? Yeah, those would be the ones that I would recommend in addition to like Midnights in general. I would say like kind of especially Paris and Paris, I think for sure you need to listen to. I think it's really fun. And I think that I Can Do With a Broken Heart from Tortured Poets Department is required listening because I think there's usually a song from each Taylor album that feels like it's the bridge between that era and the next era. And I Can Do It With a Broken Heart absolutely is going to be that song for Tortured Poets to Life of a Showgirl. So I think that that is also required listening. If you're at all interested in bridging or like jumping on and like giving that a shot, because that kind of seems like it would be more in your era of Taylor that you liked. So yes. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and letting me ramble about Taylor Swift for 45 minutes. Tragically, I will be on vacation. This is the second time in a row that I will have been with like my core group of like girlfriends for a Taylor launch, because they were here when Tortured Poets dropped. And then I walked out of this like cabaret show that we went to and it was a double album. And like, I love my core group of friends. None of them are into Taylor Swift at all. So I was like, fuck, I have a whole double album to listen to and I can't really do it in the way that I want to do it until you guys go home. And so we're going to be in New York and Toronto. I think we're in Toronto when Life of a Showgirl comes out. So that will probably be like my entire flight home from New York or Toronto, wherever we're going to be at that point. So I will probably come in raring to go on Monday or Tuesday. I can't remember what day I get back. And then maybe at that point, Greg and I will take over like a games cast and turn it into like a weird screencast spinoff where we talk about, and probably Tim too. This album is like, Tim is like very excited about this album because like he liked all of the other Max Martin and Shellback projects. So it'll be a fun one. Okay. Love you all. Bye.